OnePlus Nord is here. A couple of days ago, I unboxed this phone and seriously, OnePlus had already won the PR campaign with this phone before this phone was launched because of their incredible marketing campaign. Well, after using this phone for the last couple of days, I can tell you one thing, the hype is real. Design has always been a big focus of OnePlus's smartphones. Well, the Nord is no different. In fact, they are kind of resetting their entire design language with this phone. Firstly, they have abandoned the color red and fully embraced cyan, or as they like to call it, blue marble. This is the blue marble one. It kind of reminds me of the old Nokia Lumia smartphones or even the iPhone 5C. Yeah, the iPhone that nobody likes. Well, this one is utterly delicious. Yes, you get Gorilla Glass on the back and a plastic and metal frame on the side. And it's really ergonomic because of these curves out here. And at the same time, it's the most compact OnePlus phone that you can buy in 2020. The reason? Screen size. It's 6.44 inches, which is adequately large, but definitely much smaller, much easier on your hands than the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Talking of the display, this display is also not as swanky as the ones that you find on the elder OnePlus siblings. No curves and no screen flushing out here because of those curves. And at the same time, you are getting a really kick-ass display. You get a full HD resolution, you get 90 Hz refresh rate, and oh, by the way, it's an OLED screen. So it's really vivid, great colors, good viewing angles, and up to 1000 nits of brightness. So in any kind of a scenario, this display is going to do just fine. Be it gaming on PUBG, be it watching Netflix, or even reading a lot of text. This display is easily the best one you can get on a smartphone for less than 30,000 rupees right now. This is one of the first phones in India to pack the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G processor. So this is not a high-end 800 series processor, but it is in the same league as some of the older 800 series processors like the 845 or 855 Plus as well. At the same time, this phone has got some great gaming credentials. That's why it gets the G. The processor is called the Snapdragon 765G because the G stands for gaming. On top of it, you get 12 GB of DDR4X RAM and up to 256 GB of UFS 2.1 storage. Yeah, up to 256 GB of storage on a phone that costs less than 30K. Go figure. In terms of day-to-day performance, it is sublime. You can have multiple apps open and this phone will just sing and hum along. On top of it, the reason the user experience is so good is Oxygen OS. That's OnePlus's take on Android. Oxygen OS is based on Android 10 and it is bereft of any bloatware. In fact, this time around, they've even removed their own messaging and call dialer apps. They've replaced them with Google's own apps, which makes this even more secure. And this phone gets updates really fast and you get really clean software, which is so simple to use. The interesting thing about the OnePlus Nord is that it gets more cameras than the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. And this is their most affordable phone. That's what their marketing is really pushing. The devil is in the details, you know. You get 4 cameras out here on the back and 2 on the front. But let's talk about the 4 cameras. The primary sensor is this 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 sensor. This is the same sensor that was on the OnePlus 7, on the OnePlus 7T, on the OnePlus 8, and it's also the same sensor used in the ultra-wide camera of the OnePlus 8 Pro. So they're kind of using a really well-known, reliable, pretty high-end sensor. On top of this, OnePlus has optimized the sensor for over a year. They know what hardware they're working with and the end result is really good photos in normal daylight and surprisingly good low light performance when you use their nightscape mode. On top of this, video footage is also highly improved. The video capabilities, including 4K video, is quite stable because of the optical image stabilization, which is also a new thing on a phone at this price point. thing out here is gets a pretty okayish 8 megapixel ultra wide camera. It's going to be pretty decent, but it's not going to be that great in low light situations. And the other two cameras are almost useless. You get a depth sensor, but this phone really is not great for portrait mode photos. And that's been a problem with most OnePlus phones. So they're not really good at portrait mode. And then you get a 2 megapixel macro camera. 2 megapixels in 2020? It's kind of sacrilege. But story again changes when you go ahead on the front. You get two cameras out here, which is really unique. You get a 32 megapixel primary camera, which is really good for selfies, and you also get an ultra wide lens, which is going to be pretty handy when social distancing stops. You can have multiple group selfies, but not now. OnePlus has armed the Nord with a pretty capacious battery. You get a 4115 milliampere battery. On top of this, you even get the legendary 30-watt warp charging that OnePlus's phones are really known for. But if you compare the battery size to the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, it's definitely a much smaller battery. But then again, if you do a comparison with the OnePlus 7 and OnePlus 7T, this is a larger battery. The real important thing to know out here is the display size is much smaller, so it's driving fewer pixels. You get around 7 to 8 hours of screen on time with medium to heavy usage. On top of that, you're also going to get around about 15 hours of full use on a single charge, and the battery gets topped up in about 60 to 70 minutes, which is pretty fast. Overall, you are not going to have issues or any kind of battery anxiety with this phone. So it's quite clear the fundamentals of this phone are quite fantastic, kind of undeniable, but there's more magic that OnePlus weaves that makes their phone so delightful. In terms of user experience, this phone is absolutely top class. And one of the things that makes this phone top class are the haptics. This phone gets a pretty basic linear haptic motor, but the haptic feedback and the tactile touch is very similar to the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. And those phones are amongst the best in the department. Earlier this year, the OnePlus 5 got an update to Android 10. That was a phone from 2017. So you can totally imagine this phone getting updates till at least 2022, if not 2023. And that really results in great value. Also, if you're thinking about call quality, basics, fundamentals. This phone is fantastic. Usually having a Qualcomm chip means call quality is always going to be good, but OnePlus is definitely above average and it completely decimates the iPhone 11 Pro in that department. So, should you buy the OnePlus Nord? Yeah, if your budget is capped off till 30,000, then 100% this is the phone to choose. This is the ultimate all-rounder in that department, and it's easily one of the most powerful and feature-packed phones that you can get. It represents great value because of a clean interplay between hardware and software. But if you're really interested in photography, then there may be some better options. For instance, you still get the old Xiaomi Redmi K20 Pro. That's really good in terms of photography, better than the OnePlus Nord. Similarly, the Realme X3 Super Zoom is also more versatile and definitely punches above its weight in terms of the sub 30,000 rupee price band. But for everyone else, the OnePlus Nord is going to be the ultimate phone. Sub 30,000, this is the phone to go for.